Well, let's get started at the very best place to start, and that's at the beginning. And tell us
Mhm.
a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, and how all of this got started for you.
Sure. So obviously I'm Ryan Litchfield. And so basically in the beginning, just like, everybody's born. So all the nurses thought I was the cutest thing. Even my mom said that when I was a baby. I was learning, the developmental milestones, learning how to walk, learning how to crawl. Probably learned about 20 to 40 vocabulary words such as mama, papa, cookie, um, infinite number of words that you can think of. And so prior to the age of 2, what happened was I started losing those words that I learned. I started having trouble communicating, like verbalizing, gesturing, talking. I had pretty much none of that when I was younger,
Mm.
and my parents definitely knew something was wrong. I also was going through temper tantrums, and I was also, you know, having a difficult time with routine. And definitely, I've had my moments of, going through the tears and crying and all of that. And it was difficult for my parents to figure out what I needed or what I wanted. So
Yeah.
they reached out to their family members to see what they should do for me, like how to best support me in this situation. And so one of my grandparents said, like to my mom, like, he's your son, you got to do what's best for, for Ryan, like
Yeah.
see what's going on. And so they ended up having me tested at the hospital, probably like a neuropsychological evaluation, because autism is more of a behavioral condition. So it's more like based on, social communication, social skills, relationships, those sorts of things. Um, and a lot of the times, like with autism, they look at, certain things like social emotional reciprocity. They look at, again, like I mentioned, the relationships. And,
Yeah.
there's like intent, if they have any intense, fixated interests, or so there's a variety of different criteria. Basically, they did diagnose me at the age of 2, and which was back in 96,
Mm.
with pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified,
Yeah.
which now today is basically under that umbrella of autism spectrum disorder. So
Yeah.
it was pretty much like full blown autism when I was right around 2 years old. Like, and
They just didn't know the right term for it then. Exactly.
exactly,
Yes, I
exactly,
get it. My son as well, when he was 16 months, he got the
yeah,
same
yeah,
diagnosis.
yeah, yeah. So I ended up getting ABA therapy, applied behavioral analysis, for those that may not know. And that was basically within my own home. And that was for a couple of years, probably for about 20 to 40 hours a week.
How did you feel about that? Like, did you have good progress? I mean, I think that it can be both ways, right? You can
Mhm.
have a great therapist and you can have a not so great therapist and find a new one. Or what was that process like for you?
Oh, all in all, I mean, I think, anytime when we, working with a therapist, you're going to have good moments and you're going to have not so good moments.
So true.
And I learned things, when I was younger, such as like finding gross motor skills, like learning how to ride a bike, or even learning how to initiate eye contact with individuals, um, and even just learning proper like etiquette, like this is how you, behave at a dinner table, or various situations.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, like with applied behavioral analysis, you're trying to, you know, I mean, it's kind of like, look at, here's the, negative, or, like the behaviors that, that you want to try to eliminate, for a lack of a better term, and then, increase the other behaviors that you want to be showing. So, like, for example, I remember, or, I do somewhat remember, but I remember basically when I was younger, like, basically jumping up and down in front of a television with the hand flapping and all that. And I know that can be common for some individuals on the autism spectrum. So that was something that was being worked on in ABA therapy, trying to kind of like reduce that. And, and eventually over the course of time that worked. But I mean, it's kind of like, I think, just to give people like that, the perspective of somebody who has gone through this, it's like, because there is this controversy where, some people have had, not the best experiences with ABA
Sure.
therapy. Then you have individuals that do have good experience with
Yeah.
ABA therapy. And I was very fortunate where my mom was so supportive. Like, if there was a blizzard outside, like, she was calling my ABA therapist and she was like, "You're still coming to do the ABA therapy with her?" And I remember my ABA therapist telling me that story too, because it was just really funny. And there was another funny moment too where I was trying to associate words with objects and stuff, and back in right around 95, 96, there were still McDonald's Happy Meal toys. I think The Lion King was out near that time. And so I had Mufasa action figure and I had another action figure. And it was the funniest moment that my ABA therapist told me was that I was reenacting the death scene for Mufasa from The Lion King,
Oh.
which is like the saddest part of the movie. But
Sure.
at the same time, it's like, it
Impacting.
was also a really good milestone as well. So, it was definitely, it was a huge achievement in that sense. I did also get speech therapy, occupational therapy, social skills therapy. That I went to a special school, which again I had those services.
Yeah.
I eventually then went into the public school system where I was on an individualized educational plan. So I did have an aid support. I had the same services like I did in the special school. For me, some of the challenges, especially in elementary school, included like loud noise. So it's kind of like, because for some individuals, they have what's like sensory overload, or that, some, are like some of it's under, and then some of it's, it's over under, and then there's, fascination with the different senses. But for me, it was kind of just overwhelming. It's almost like, and I mean, I still have my moments, like if there's so much, like too much information, or if the noise is really, really, really loud, it's almost like I'm in tunnel vision. It's almost like I'm overwhelmed. It's like, and then when I get to that point, it's almost like I can't think cognitively. And then it's like something where I can't even find the words. It's like, and it's like, and people tell me, it's like, "Oh, I don't think you have autism. I don't think you have this." It's like, and people think, okay, autism equals nonverbal communication, which it's
I
like, there's a
know.
lot of people with autism that do talk. And it's like, but it's, for me, it's
Yeah,
like,
right?
exactly. It's like, you could be, very intelligent, and have a high IQ or whatever. But it's really about that adaptive behavior aspect of it. But just, circling back to like elementary school, loud noises, routines when they were unpredictable, schedules, those were just really just difficult. And I just had a really hard time with fitting in with people my own age. And that was that. I mean, that was just elementary school. So I felt like I was like a little bit more mature than, people my own age as well too. So I can see, why it was kind of difficult to fit in at that point too.
Yeah.
Middle school got a little bit easier for me. I ended up uh, joining a math club, and I also played the alto saxophone in the band. So trying to fit in with people without disabilities. So I mean, so I was trying to make some progress there.
Yeah.
Again, I had similar supports there too.
Did you
Uh,
attend your IEP meetings when you were in high school?
so I actually started attending my IEP meetings. Actually, I was 14, right around seventh grade,
Okay,
actually.
yeah.
So So yeah,
Perfect.
so
I love
right
it.
around, seventh, eighth grade,
Mhm.
I started attending those meetings. Um, basically hearing what the teachers have to say, and from a performance standard and conduct and all that, and then get everybody else's input. Eighth grade was definitely not easy, and even the transition to high school wasn't easy. Um, Eighth grade, I dealt with a lot of anxiety and a lot of
Mhm.
depression, and I dealt with a lot of like anger too. Um, and I think again, part of it was knowing that the transition from middle to high school was coming.
Yeah.
And then I also had family members that, I like one of my family members had cancer and what was not doing well and eventually passed away. But,
Sorry to hear
I
that.
think, so that made the transition from eighth to ninth grade a little bit challenging. And then even like my high school had like 2,000 students, so it's like my high school had basically it's a regional high school
Yeah.
with five
Big.
different towns. Um, and that's about like 500 students, in the freshman class. And during that time period, I was still experiencing some like feelings of anger, some feelings of, like I just felt like I was not in a good place. It actually got to a point where, they were, worried about, my health and well being and whether I was going to be able to remain in the school, given everything that was going on. And, one of the things I've, even just like from a social perspective too, like, you know, like when I was younger, like, with social media back then, it was like, I think there was still Facebook right around, 2008, 2009.
Yeah, yeah.
But, one of the things that, I mean, I'm not going to go into detail, but basically it was a social miscommunication
Mm,
incident that I kind of regretted. But we all have our teachable moments. Like
absolutely.
when we come to,
Absolutely.
but and you learn those moments. Like it's like especially. I mean, I'll put it this way. You don't want to take your anger and your frustrations out on somebody in the wrong way.
Hmm.
um,
Absolutely.
but things eventually got a little bit better for me. I was doing fine with my classes, A's and B's. I was, um, I actually, and that's right around junior year of high school. That's when I started. So my speech and language pathologist, who was also like the liaison from my IEP and all that, she approached me and another individual on the autism spectrum to see if we would be interested in speaking to an elementary school
Oh.
about our lived experiences on the autism spectrum because they were doing a program to promote autism awareness and acceptance. And so basically at that time, so me and the other student went to the elementary school and we ended up again sharing our lived experiences to the students. And after we had an opportunity to share those lived experiences, we allowed them to ask questions. They had questions about what is it like to have autism, what is autism, because it showed that they were interested in learning more about it. But the other piece that I thought was really incredible, like one of the best moments for me, and that's kind of like why I kind of do public speaking in a sense, like today, or doing podcasts and all that. Students actually ask me questions like, what's your favorite food, what's your favorite video game, what's your favorite outdoor activity.
Yeah.
And that moment is so special because one of the things that I really truly believe in is, the person is always going to be a person first,
The
not just
person,
somebody
human
with
first. Yeah.
disability.
Agreed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, eventually, I graduated from high school and then I went on to Assumption University. Um, things got a little bit better there. I started forming some friendships. I mean, obviously you have your ups and downs with college life too.
Sure.
Um, you know, I went to go about so freshman year. So another transition challenge for me was my second semester of my freshman year at Assumption, I actually ended up having a seizure. I
Oh no.
had an epileptic seizure, actually, and I ended up. The strange part is that I ended up falling out of my bed, and the scary part was my door was locked, so my parents were trying to get into the my bedroom. They were
Oh
banging on the
no.
door, and they were like, "Ryan, Ryan, are you okay? Are you okay?" I don't know how. I still had a little consciousness to still open the door, and then they were just asking me all these questions. I had bite marks on my tongue.
Mm,
Um, I was just out of it, and that's pretty much indicated that something went wrong there.
yeah.
Um, and then I found out from the neurologist I couldn't drive for 6 months. So
Oh,
that's always, that was the bad news
a
there, but
drawback. Huh.
a little drawback there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and then it gets even more interesting, and I'll tell that in a sec. But what I was majoring in an assumption is human service and rehabilitation studies,
Mm.
and I was also majoring in, well, not majoring. I got my certificate in aging services, which I
Oh,
also considered gerontology, which is the study of aging.
yeah.
Especially now where we have more adults with autism on the rise, and trying to trying to get more resources and research and supports,
Yeah.
for that particular age group as well. But then so, speaking, another drawback I had, or I mean, another, tough situation I was in is I found out that I had thyroid disease. So I ended up
Oh.
having, I actually, and this was just through like a doctor's appointment, regular physical, primary care doctor's appointment, got my, thyroid levels checked, and, she said, yeah, you have hyperthyroidism. And you noticed, like, cause I was having like fatigue. I was, intolerant to the heat. I was, having like, even during the winter time, like I would try to have a fan on. Like it was like, it's like heat intolerance, and then having palpitations and tremor and all the different symptoms associated with it. And then my thyroid was a little bit enlarged too at the time. And so they put me on anti-thyroid medication for a little while, to see, if that will help, because there's a small chance for, like, I mean, I was, actually, even before that, I had they did a test to see if I had like Graves' disease, and I did have Graves' disease. So again, for those of you that don't know what Graves' disease is, it's basically an autoimmune condition, in which basically it's a thyroid, it's associated with hyperthyroidism. You can Google it if you want to. I'm not going to go about that in
No
particular,
worries.
but um, so we tried that for a little bit. I went on to graduate from Assumption. Tried a human resource administrative assistant job at one company that was an ABA company for children and adolescents with
Hmm.
autism. So I tried that for about 6 months or so. Then I tried to be a stay-at-home care case manager assistant. Um, and then I come to find out from my endocrinologist that the medication that was supposed to try to get me into remission for my Graves' disease, it didn't work. So it was unsuccessful, and I still continued to have hyperthyroid symptoms and all of that. So my next option was trying radioactive iodine therapy. So I went into the hospital to get that done.
Oh, goodness.
And so after that, that was also unsuccessful. So
Hmm.
I ended up having my whole thyroid surgically removed. Uh,
Wow.
so, and yes, for those of you that are wondering if you can live without a thyroid, yes, you can. Uh, but
Proof.
it but it means that but basically the doctor's like, if you go through this procedure, you have to take thyroid hormone replacement for the rest of your life, which is, I mean, there's so many people out there with thyroid disease. It's actually not, it's pretty common.
Interesting.
There's a lot of people with hypothyroidism too, which is like the underactive thyroid, which,
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what I've been having. So anyway, I was going through, so I
That's
had
a lot.
that surgery done. And then, for a little while I had, hypocalcemia. So I had a lack of calcium. So, it's been like a medical merry-go-round for me during that time. Um, but eventually, I was, trying other jobs. I tried being a case manager at a aging service agency. That did not work out because there was 80 to 100 clients in a caseload.
Whoa.
And the organization was just really huge. And I just realized it's like trying to, drive to people's homes and trying to do all the narratives and it was just a lot to do. And so then I went on to try to become a home care administrative coordinator. So that worked out pretty well for about almost a year until I got laid off because of COVID-19. Then I went on to become an autism peer specialist. So I went on to, help adults on the autism spectrum. They were contracted through, so in Massachusetts, they have like a Department of Developmental Services.
Okay.
So I work with individuals. So on the autism spectrum, so it'd be things like employment, post-secondary education.
That's
Could be
perfect.
things like assisting with, researching, doctors and, healthcare and related things. So kind of like, and just, help, running like focus groups, like based on particular interests. So like, for example, I ended up running a technology group. So, and there were a lot of people like that were interested in that. So I ended up running that. And that was fun.
Did
So I
you make
remember
some
that.
friends doing that?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, I wouldn't really, because of that, like the way the relationship is like
Sure.
professionally.
No fraternizing.
No frat. Yeah.
I get
Uh,
it.
yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, I don't want to cross that bridge.
Sure.
So, and then unfortunately, I mean, so, I was in that for a while and then I um, and actually before that, I tried to be an autism case manager because, my boss was like, you have so many great skills, you have
Yeah.
lived experience, you did all that, and, you know, I mean, which was ultimately my choice because I wanted to try it. But then all of a sudden the anxiety was just increasing and hypothyroidism and all these
Oh.
different things. And it's just like,
Stress can do a
okay,
number on our bodies, can't it?
yeah. And
Just
well, then
riles it all up.
exactly. And then, even just, after that, I tried to be a PCM clinical administrative assistant, and that job was also very stressful. And so I just, my body just, I felt like I lost my self-esteem. I lost
Yeah.
confidence. I just had like, my anxiety was bad. Like it was like I had moments literally where I was like crying almost every day. Like it
Mhm.
was terrible. Like, and I didn't end up working for like 6 or 7 months. I actually tried applying for disability twice. Both times I was denied.
Dang it.
Both both times I was denied. And the funny part is the first time I was denied was because, oh, autism spectrum disorder is expected to improve. And it's like, uh yeah,
Yeah, right?
I don't think that
What
necessarily
measure? What
improves.
ruler are you measuring
Yeah,
this from?
exactly. Do you
It's
understand
silly.
that this is a spectrum
Uh,
disorder and that
yeah,
this is lifelong? People, that's the thing. It's like
I know.
unfortunately, you have people out there that think, oh, it's just children and adolescents. Like,
Just male. Just
no,
little boys, right? Only little
yeah, or
boys.
just exactly. And it's
Smart
like,
little
no,
boys.
it's not just boys either. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
So,
it's interesting.
um,
Trying to
you
change
know,
the narrative, Ryan. We're doing it.
yeah, exactly. And so, during some of my time, I actually ended up, participating in, some other blogs. I did a couple blogs for the Organization for Autism Research. One, I think I did one for COVID-19. The other one I did on peer support,
Good.
and how, I would love to see more organizations include, individuals with lived experience on the autism spectrum, trying to create those neurodiverse workplaces,
Yeah.
because they bring so much talent and so much strength to these businesses. And I think businesses are starting to realize that even, today, like, in computer companies and in a variety of other places too, but especially like where, you have people with autism, they're trying to navigate these social situations. And it's like, you have, providers, and you have these case managers, and you have all these different people. And it's like, wait a minute. It's like, they don't have lived experience. They might have a son or a daughter with autism. They
Oh, I
might
get
have,
it.
they might, have learned about autism in the schools, or they might have, or they may have not learned about autism at all. And one of the things I always tell people is, it's one thing to, learn about autism. It's another thing to live with it. And I believe that applies to almost any disability or medical condition a
Absolutely.
person is,
Yeah,
because it's
100%.
it's all that perspective taking, which is something I've learned in social pragmatics in high school. It's like, and it's like, it's funny, and it isn't, because, I have, this is perspective taking. And then you have other people that are not, that aren't even on the autism spectrum, that have trouble with perspective taking as well. Um,
So
so
true.
it's just, I think, in that particular, situation, it's just, just in general, like, I mean, I think it's sad to see that 80 to 90% of people with autism are either unemployed or underemployed.
Yeah.
It's like, I would love to see more people with
Devastating.
autism being in leadership positions, and,
Mhm.
having the opportunities like other people. And it's just like, and that's something I try to advocate for, because it's so important. It's not like, oh, like if we ask for an accommodation, or, oh, if we're asking, for supports or whatever, it's like, unfortunately, again, you're gonna come across different personalities, but and then at the same time, it's like, sometimes you have hiring managers and professionals that might, feel annoyed, or they
Mhm.
might be, they just don't want to address the issue or something. And
Yeah.
so it's like, they just let the person go, or, they just, basically write them up or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's just like, I mean, and I think that's what people really need to realize. Like, these are not individuals that are trying to make your life more difficult.
Mhm.
These are things that people actually have that experience. And it's like, it's
Yeah.
out of their control. And it's like, it's not like they're trying to do any harm or anything out of it. It's like, they're trying to get help, just
Yeah.
like somebody who has a mental health, like, who has really bad anxiety or really bad depression. Like, if somebody's having trouble trying to, like, dating, for example, if somebody's having trouble with dating, I would want to see a counselor or see somebody to
Yeah.
try to work on those things.
Definitely.
Or, like, if I'm having a hard time with getting a job, I would want to work with a vocational rehabilitation counselor.
Yeah.
So there's those aspects of it as well. And then I also I did a podcast appearance for the Global Autism Project. So that was episode 60, which is available on Apple iTunes, in case anybody
Nice.
wants to know. It's on my personal experiences with ABA, and also
Wonderful.
um, the need for research for, as I'm, for older adults on the autism spectrum.
Yeah, I like
Because
that. You said
I
that.
mean, even like, I talk to these different agencies, in social work and, human services. And, even like, so for example, like, nursing homes get phone call, they're calling these agencies, and it's like, are there services for older adults with autism? Like, because the reality is, you have some older adults that were either misdiagnosed with a mental health issue, or they were never diagnosed to begin with, as a
Exactly.
child, and now they're just being diagnosed. So, I mean, it's crazy
It
what,
is.
what you go through. But yeah.
That is certainly true. And I really like that you said that. And so it gave me a great idea. And what I'm going to do attached to this episode down in the description is I'm going to put links of all of the autism um, employers that I know, all the autism employers that hire all autistics to, run everything they do. And I have a list. So I'm going to attach that with this. And so any listeners that are like, yes, workers need more accommodations, all of those things are so important. And I'm really glad that you brought those things to mind. And I love what you said about the aging services too, because I think that that's like a whole nother topic and discussion that needs to have light shown on it, just like you're doing. So thank you so much for your work and advocacy in the community. Do you have a website or social media that you have that you people could find you?
I do. It is autismpeer.com. Actually, I'll say this too. So originally it was called Ryan's Voice,
Okay.
but now it's called the Autism Peer. And I kind of related that concept to kind of like my role as an autism peer specialist, providing mentoring,
Yeah.
motivating
I
education
love
and,
that.
to individuals with autism and stuff. And I'm actually now a independent contractor, sole proprietor of what I call the Autism Peer. So I am actually working with a client for providing administrative and consulting services for to work with like ABA agencies and to provide autism related services and stuff by
Perfect.
sharing my lived experiences and stuff. So that's really nice.
Yeah, really fantastic.
And I mean, at some point, I would like to, incorporate life skills coaching for like adults on the spectrum. I mean, it's still important to have services for, children and adolescents, but especially for adults, there needs to be more resources. There needs to be more funding. There needs to be more because I mean, I've done the research and I'm saying this, it's like, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure, other advocates would probably say the same thing. There's not a lot of supports
Yeah.
for adults and older adults on the autism
We
spectrum
need
and
to
where
maybe
they're
change it on the legislative, level.
yeah, and I mean I'm hoping that happens, in the future,
Yeah, definitely.
but I think, it's trying, and even in times like these where now we're in like the post pandemic, like I like working remotely. I like,
Mm-hmm.
I have, with the access of technology, I mean, now you can pretty much do most of the work from home. And it's
Yeah,
like, so I'm like, try to provide, like virtual services, telephonic, those kinds of things.
that's great.
Um, so I'm looking forward to that adventure and see where that takes me. Um,
Yeah,
and then and looking at other job opportunities as well too. So, it's always good
perfect.
to keep an open mind, of all the different possibilities that could come about. And the thing is like with the autism peer, like, not even just that, but like the client I'm working for, that I'm going to be working for, collaborating. I connected with on LinkedIn with the
Yeah,
CEO at LinkedIn. So that's how it just comes to show you how networking and communicating with people and getting to know and putting yourself out there can make all the difference, in somebody's
absolutely.
life.
Yes, I agree. That's why I love this show. Love bringing guests on like you to share their lived experiences so that we can have a new perspective and a new view. I'm even thinking about adding like a little slogan to the SJ Child Show name and like a view of autism. I don't know. I have to go check and make sure it's not already taken by somebody else. But yeah, thank you so much for being here today and connecting with me. And it was really fun and I learned a lot about you um and I think that supporting businesses and businesses supporting communities, go hand in hand in a very symbiotic relationship that needs to be fostered and they need to learn more about how to do that. So, thank you so much for your work in the community. And I hope we can stay connected.
Yes, of course. And, just, for people to know who are working with, individuals with autism and, always, try to focus on like their strengths and try to, you always want to, try to stay positive too. Like, have just, see, I think the key thing for anybody on the autism spectrum is not just awareness, but it's also acceptance. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that is what a lot of individuals are trying to, to seek out, whether that's in employment, whether that's in post-secondary education,
Yeah.
or even just in a relationship, like in friendships and dating
Connections.
or connections.
100%.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it's just, I
Exactly.
think, like Dr. Temple Grandin. So I remember one of her quotes because I read there was a book called Carly's Voice.
Yeah.
Carly Fleischman.
Right.
I read her book, and I think there was a quote in that book. I'm not 100% sure, but I did come across one of Dr. Temple Grandin's quotes that the world needs all different kinds of minds to work together. And now fortunately I know several, famous people on the autism spectrum. I mean, even when I'm fortunate and grateful to be connected with Dr. Stephen Shore, so
Yeah.
I'm and just being in touch with him from time to time.
Yeah, definitely. He'll
And
be in our upcoming summit that I have coming. And, you can find Temple's episode. It's maybe 20 episodes back. I had her on the show about probably 8 months ago. So, yeah, amazing, amazing advocates and information and just a really great view and perspective to be accepting in this world. Be kind, be compassionate, and let's all do this together. So that is my message. So thank you so
yeah,
much for being here today, Ryan. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. And like I said,
no,
I hope we can stay in touch.
of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.